Okay, so now, as you know, Karen, we are in the Thinking Through My Fingers, a writer's series. So let's learn a little bit more about you as a writer. Um, why do you write?
My story is a little odd in that I never considered myself a writer. It wasn't anything that was, that I ever thought that I would be a writer, but it was truly a God thing that he gave me this vision of this book because, and you know my story of so much loss that it was purely out of obedience that I wrote my first book. We'll see if another book comes, um, but it's truly just obedience, and I learned a lot in the process for sure.
Okay, we're going to talk about that too. Okay, just to refresh, in case somebody is listening that has not listened to your prior episode, you did experience a lot of loss. You had an infant son that died, and then remind me of the amount of years and the amount of people.
All right, so we lost our first son, Matthew, and he lived for almost 3 days. He had died of a heart problem, the same thing that your son died of.
Yeah.
And then a year later, I had a miscarriage, and that threw us into the ministry that we continue to lead for people that have lost babies to miscarriage, stillbirth, or infant death. So Rick and I, my husband Rick and I, had been leading grief support groups for about 12 years. Um, and then my sister got cancer and she passed away. Then 4 months later, my mom passed away. And then the following year, my father-in-law passed away. And then the following year, my mother-in-law. And then 6 months later, my brother. And then the next year, my dad. And then the next year, my sister-in-law. So seven immediate, very close family members within a period of 6 years. So, um, you know, thrown into this whirlwind of grief after teaching and leading grief support groups for so many years. I was questioning God. It's like, why so much grief and loss? And that's when he gave me this vision of this book.
Wow.
And that's kind of my story. And we still continue to lead these grief support groups. Not that we ever wanted to be experts in grief, but we kind of have become grief experts. So
Oh my
that's our
goodness.
ministry.
Well, gosh. And listener, Karen and I know each other in real life. We are friends. We've been friends for many years. And yes, it's amazing the things that we experience in this life without net. Well, usually we're not signing up for some of these things or most of these things, and yet here we are, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So before we get to the learning what you learned, I'm curious about your writing process. Do you have any rituals around it? Do you write longhand? Do you go right to the computer? I mean, how do you write?
I tend, because it is a sensitive topic and it can be very emotional, because a lot of it, the book is basically tools and stories and experiences and education about grief and loss. So I tend to write when Rick travels a lot, so I tend to write when he's gone because I like to be in my little cocoon, and if I need to cry, if I stay up until 3 in the morning writing, then I have my time and my space to do that. So
Right. Okay, remind us of, well, we haven't said it yet here, but tell me the name of the book.
the book is 828 Hope in the Darkness, and it is based on the Bible verse Romans 8:28, which is in all things God works good for those who love him according to his purposes. So
Right.
not that all things are good, because we go through a lot of really not very fun things in this life, but God can and does work good in all things. So
That is such an important distinction for anybody to understand, either believer or non-believer, that is what we believe, that he works things for good. Not that what we experience is good.
Correct.
Yeah, it's very important distinction. Mm, mm,
Yeah,
mm.
yeah. And then the tagline, I have my book. I don't know if you want to,
Yeah, sure,
I happen
we
to have it here.
should. There you go.
But the tagline is it's 828 Hope in the Darkness, a pathway from heartbreak to healing and hope. So that is, my hope in the book is that it would provide people with tools and exercises to work through whatever they're going through. And it's not just loss of a child, it's loss of, a spouse, a home, a job, a dream, a loved one, there are so many different emotions tied to grief that um, it's all very similar when you're going through it. The
Right,
circumstances may be different, but a lot of the emotions that you go through grief is very much the same. So,
right. Absolutely. Yes, I agree completely. I mean, having had parallel experiences, yes, absolutely. Emotions, no matter what the loss is, there's still what you go through. And I heard someone say recently, there is no should in grief. And I just thought that was so profound and
yeah,
so good.
yeah, I like that. I like that because it's so individual for everybody. There's no right way to grieve. Yeah.
Right. Um, what did you were talked about what you learned? What did you learn through this?
I learned that I really didn't know anything about writing a book. And there's a lot to learn. Do you self-publish? Do you try to seek out a publisher? And that was a huge researching experience that I went through. And these days, self-publishing is much easier to do than I think in the past. You'd always pretty much go through a publisher. But these days, unless you are a known entity, you have a huge platform and following, most publishers won't really take a look at you. And, I didn't have a huge following and I know that there's definitely pros and cons to both, but um you lose a lot of um your ability um to do what you want to do when you're working with a publisher.
Mhm.
And um, and they do take a huge piece of the pie. So so I opted to self-publish, and it's so far I'm very, very happy with that decision.
Mhm.
And I have the freedom to do whatever I want to do with my book and place it wherever I want to place it. And um, yeah, it's worked out great.
Right. That's I yeah, there it's nice that we live at a time when we really can do that sort of thing. Be able to self-publish and continue to have that freedom.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that want to take advantage of you out there. I learned that too, that there's lots and lots of people that, say that they're going to do all sorts of wonderful things for your book, and that they, of course, want lots and lots of money for it. And then
Yes, yes.
I wasn't willing to, put myself into debt for for this book. I
Right.
didn't feel like God was calling me to spend, boatloads of money to do this. I
Thousands
feel
and
like
thousands.
if he
Mhm.
wants me to do it, I'll do it, and then he's going to put it where it needs to go. So,
Right, right. No, that's a good point because they kind of come out of the woodwork. You're like, what? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, very interesting. So that's part of what you learned is that you didn't know anything about writing, and then you ended up self-publishing. Are you writing anything now?
There are some projects that I want to write together with Rick. Um, we've been leading this ministry for many years. Rick has put together a facilitator's training manual, and so we want to get that set up properly and do a workbook based on 828 Hope in the Darkness, and that will kind of be a guide to the ministry that we do because it is an 8-week program that we offer for child loss, and so it would probably be something, around that, those kind of writing projects that we would probably do. And then I think I sent it to you, but I was told about this. What is it called? It's I met my younger self for coffee. That there's some
Oh,
social media thing going on with that, and so it was a project that someone asked me about, and so I did it, and it was a
oh,
really
fun.
interesting exercise. So I've done a couple poems that people have asked me to read at different events and things that we do because we do a lot
Oh,
through the church and through, a couple other nonprofits that I'm involved with. So for different, you know, events, they've asked me to put these things together uh, and they've been really interesting writing exercises. So if
so is this like a particular thing that's sort of gone viral, so to speak, where you quote unquote meet your younger self for coffee and then do you answer like a specific questions or you just whatever comes up is what you
It's kind of whatever comes up. I mean, I did it really fast. I didn't even know what it was. But I was being interviewed for something else, and she said, "Are you familiar with this? I met my younger self for coffee thing that's going on." And so I researched it. I'm like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." So I did it, and yeah, I don't know. I can read it to you if you want. I don't know if we have time
totally
for that.
totally up to you. Let's
I don't know. I mean, let's see. Let me see if I have pulled it out here. Um, yeah, I don't know. Are you serious? I mean,
yeah,
you good with that?
how long is it? I guess would be my first question.
I don't think it's that long. I mean, I made really big font. So it's like a page, maybe, if that.
Okay. Yeah,
But
sure.
okay. So I met my younger self for coffee. We both were on time because our mom taught us well. Being on time shows respect for the person you're meeting. She ordered a cafe mocha, and I ordered a non-fat vanilla latte. She told me she wanted to find a man who would love her the way dad loved mom, and with kindness, respect, and fun. I smiled and I told her she found him. She told me she was shy, the youngest in the family, never feeling confident enough to speak because everyone else was older and wiser. I told her she would go on to impact more lives than she could ever imagine, that one day she would share her story and help people all over the world. She told me that after she lost her first son, Matthew, and then had a miscarriage a year later, she didn't think she would ever be happy again. I told her she would never forget Matthew and her other baby, but she would go on to have two more children, Ryan and Avery, and they would all live lives of significance, joy, love, and deep purpose. She told me she never felt comfortable or confident speaking, writing, or being a leader. I told her she would become the CEO of a company, write a book, co found a nonprofit, and co lead a ministry for 30 years with her husband, helping people through grief. She told me how much she loved her family, how she prayed for them every night, and how she was afraid of losing them. And I gently told her that her greatest fear would come true. She would lose her entire family to cancer over a 6-year period. Her eyes welled up with tears, and she whispered, "I don't think I could survive that." I reached for her hand and told her that when the unimaginable happens, God carries us through the darkest valleys. That grief would shake her to the core, but with time, faith, and hope, she would find her way to peace and be able to experience joy again. She told me she wanted to make a difference in the world. I smiled and told her that she already has, because of her life experiences, the loss of her first two babies, and eventually the loss of her family. She would go on to make an impact greater than she ever dreamed possible. God would use her life for good and for a purpose greater than herself. She looked at me, processing it all, and for the first time, I saw something new in her eyes. She had hope. And with that, we finished our coffee and hugged. She said she hoped to get together again soon, and I told her I would love that.
Oh gosh, Karen, that is incredible. That is so moving. And
Oh,
oh my gosh, what an incredible exercise.
it really was. You should do it.
I
It was
think I'm going to
really,
have to.
yes, I think you
Yes.
have to. It was
Yes.
really,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
yeah.
Geez. Okay, so a couple more things. And what advice would you give somebody who wants to write? What advice would you give them? And thank you for sharing that, by the way. That was truly beautiful.
I don't know if you're going to use it or not in this, but
Yes, I am.
um, I would say just do it. I mean, just start writing. And, whether you go to publish it or not, it helps you just in healing the whole process of writing and getting it out is a healing experience. And yeah, I would just say if you have that urge or desire to write, just do it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Agreed. And what do you hope readers take away from reading 828, Hope in the Darkness? It really is I've read it, an incredible handbook almost
It,
on grief, like the stuff you go through, the stuff people around you go through. It really is, it's very informational and inspirational.
Yeah. And that was my goal and I know it's kind of unconventional. It's not like a normal book because it is kind of like a workbook and there's tools and like I said, stories and information, and it really does help you to walk through that grief and also to help other people who may want to help other people through grief.
Yeah,
There's a segment of what to say and what not to say, and
right.
how people can be very helpful or not very helpful. And Rich, your story's in the book too. So so
We collaborate.
so
So yes, go ahead.
yeah. So I would say, that people are changed because of it, and that there is some healing and some hope that people would gain through reading the book.
Right. I think for that reason, the book is aptly named. Yes, very much so. Um, Anything else in conclusion that you feel like you didn't get to that you wanted to get to?
I
Big
don't,
sigh, big
I
sigh.
don't know.
No, that's fine. If you feel like we covered it, then that's good.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Was that long enough?
No, it I think it was just right. I mean, I feel like you covered so much of the questions I wanted to ask you. And yeah, even ones, questions I had, you answered without being directly asked. So that to me, that's a good conversation. And
Oh, I thought of
yeah,
one
go
thing.
ahead.
Well, you
Yes,
just thought of
do.
something too, but
No,
remember
go
that.
ahead, go ahead.
I was going to say for people who don't want to spend a lot of money to have their book published, I was referred by another author who had written, was in the process of writing a book just shortly before for me, so he was on the timeline just ahead of me, and he suggested using Fiverr, which I don't know if you're familiar with Fiverr, but there are some wonderful editors and, you know, copywriters or interior design, because you have to do the interior of your book, the format of the book. There's so much involved in getting it ready to actually publish if you're self-publishing. So that would be a suggestion to opt into the Fiverr, and I use Fiverr Pro and look for all the people that have really good recommendations, and they are very reasonably priced. So if that's something that is needed, that's just an option.
That's great advice. Thank you for that. My last question was, where can people find you?
Oh, people can find me through 828 Hope in the Darkness. There's an Instagram and Facebook page. Also, our nonprofit is www.828hope.org.
828 Hope.
828hope.org is our
Hope.org.
nonprofit.
Okay.
My email address is Karen, Karen, at 828hope.org. And what else do you need?
I think that's it. I think that's it. We've got a lot of different ways to find you, to Facebook and Instagram and the website, and then also email. So that's all very helpful info. Yeah, I don't think we really get through this life without grief
Mm.
on some level. I mean, it just is part of it, just
Yeah,
part of it.
and it never ends because your love for whatever you've lost isn't ever going to go away, so
Right.
there's always going to be triggers or what have you to, it's like I feel like grief and love go hand in hand. So
Wow, that's beautiful.
the,
Oh,
the deeper we love, the deeper we grieve. So
absolutely. Yes, that's so true. Oh, yes, it is. Karen, what a pleasure. What a joy. I appreciate the work that you and Rick are doing to help the healing process, to help us better understand grief, how we can deal with it, process it, move on from it, keeping that hope alive. Uh, I love the story you shared of meeting your younger self for coffee. That was mm,
well,
just,
I'm glad. I want to hear yours when you do it.
well, yeah, I got to do it first. Okay. That sounds great, Karen. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you. It was a pleasure.